My dad told me to figure my college funds out on my own because I hid my mom's cheating 2 years ago. I still remember the way the words left my father's mouth. Slow, measured, almost polite, like he was forcing himself to stay calm. Figure your college funds out on your own, Noah, he said. You've been old enough to make decisions. Now live with one. At first, I didn't even process what he meant. I thought he was bluffing, like one of those empty parental threats. But then what he said the next and the look in his eyes made me come to the realization that he wasn't bluffing. 2 years earlier, when I was 16, I walked into something that rewired how I saw my parents forever. It was a rainy Thursday. I remember because I'd stayed late at school for debate practice, and Mom had said she'd pick me up. She didn't show. So I took the bus home, headphones in, my uniform clinging to me from the damp air. When I walked through the front door, I heard laughter. Her laughter was echoing from the kitchen. I thought Dad had come home early. He'd been working double shifts at the hospital, so I ran in with my backpack half unzipped, ready to tell him about my debate trophy. But it wasn't him. It was Marcus, Mom's co-worker. He was leaning against the counter, smiling, while Mom stood way too close, wine glass in hand. The kitchen lights were low, soft, romantic. I froze by the doorway, too stunned to move. When she brushed his arm, something in me cracked. I dropped my backpack. It hit the floor with a dull thud. She turned. Her smile vanished. Noah! I didn't wait. I stormed upstairs, locked my door, and put in my earbuds. But no song could drown the image out. That night, she came into my room, sat on my bed like nothing had happened. Please don't tell your father, she whispered, voice trembling. It was a mistake. I swear it was. And I didn't. Because I was 16. Because I was scared. Because even though I hated her for it, I still loved her. But secrets rot, and this one festered quietly for 2 years, until it came back to kill everything I had left. When my dad found out, it wasn't from me. He found out from her. 2 years later, after Marcus's wife filed for divorce and everything started unraveling. I came home from school one afternoon, and the air in the apartment felt heavy. The blinds were half drawn, and Dad was sitting at the kitchen table with a folded piece of paper in his hand. Mom wasn't home. Sit down, he said. His voice was low, flat. I sat across from him, my heart pounding. Your mother told me about Marcus, he said. She told me what happened 2 years ago. I swallowed hard, waiting for him to explode. But he didn't. He just looked at me, that kind of look that hurts worse than yelling. She also said, he continued, that you knew, that you saw them, that you kept it from me. There it was. The ground dropped out from under me. Dad, don't, he said. He held up his hand, eyes glistening. Don't you dare try to justify it. I was 16. I didn't know what to do. You knew right from wrong, he shot back. You knew your father deserved the truth. His voice cracked. You let me sit across the dinner table from her for 2 years, like a fool, he whispered. Do you know what that does to a man? I didn't answer. Couldn't. He stood up, walked over to the sink, and turned his back to me. I don't hate you, he said quietly, but I can't trust you either. Not right now. Then he left to his room, and the silence that followed was louder than anything I'd ever heard. 2 months later, my acceptance letter came from NYU. I remember standing in my bedroom, clutching it like it was the one thing that could make all the pain worth it. Dad had promised for years that he'd cover my tuition, that he'd been saving since I was born. College had always been our shared dream. When I told him the news, he nodded once and said, "Congratulations." That was all. A week later, he called me into his office. That's when he told me he wasn't paying, that I'd figure it out myself. He said he'd keep the money for someone who didn't sell out his own family. I walked out of his office shaking, humiliated, angry, but mostly hollow. For weeks, I worked double shifts at a burger joint down the street. My fingers smelled like grease, my eyes burned from exhaustion, and every night I came home to the same cold silence. Mom had moved out by then to an apartment across town. I visited sometimes, but every conversation with her felt like salt in a wound. She tried to make things right, but I couldn't forgive her either. It was like I was split in half between two people who'd both broken me in different ways. One night in July, I came home from work and found Dad in the kitchen again, sitting alone, drinking coffee from a chipped mug. He looked older, tired. "Hey," I said quietly. He didn't look up. "Hey." The silence stretched. I was about to head upstairs when he said, "How's the job?" I shrugged. "It's fine. Pays minimum wage. Won't get me anywhere near tuition." He took a sip of coffee. "There's community college." I bit back a bitter laugh. "Right? Because that's what we always talked about, right? Community college and flipping burgers." His jaw tightened. "Don't take that tone with me." I slammed my bag down. "Then don't punish me for something I did as a scared kid." He stood, his voice low and hard. "You made a choice. You protected a liar instead of your own father. Actions have consequences." I felt tears burn behind my eyes. "You think I wasn't torn up about it? You think I slept at night?" He didn't respond. "You talk about consequences," I said, voice shaking. "But you're not teaching me anything. You're just hurting me back." He flinched just barely, but I saw it. Then he said quietly, "Maybe that's all I have left." I left the house that night, walked for hours through the city past the same glowing storefronts I'd known all my life, until my feet ached. Started to rain again, just like that night 2 years ago. A month later, I moved out. I rented a tiny room in a shared apartment near the subway. I worked mornings at a cafe and nights at a delivery job. My friends were scattered across universities, posting photos of dorms and parties and smiling faces. Me? I was just trying to survive. Sometimes on my lunch break, I'd see NYU students walking past in their hoodies and lanyards, laughing about classes and roommates. It burned. But it also pushed me. I applied for grants, scholarships, anything. I took out a small loan under my name. Slowly, painfully, I pieced together enough to start classes part-time that fall. The first day I stepped onto campus, I almost cried. Not because I'd made it, but because I'd made it without him. Still, I couldn't shake the emptiness. Mom called often, always checking in, always apologizing. She'd say things like, "Your dad's hurting, Noah. He's just lost." Sometimes I wanted to yell at her, to tell her she started this. But I couldn't, because every time I saw her face, I remembered how broken she looked after the divorce papers were signed. She'd lost everything too. One afternoon, she came to see me at the cafe. She looked smaller somehow, older. "I'm proud of you," she said, reaching across the table, "for doing this on your own." I nodded, not trusting my voice. Then she said, "He misses you, you know? He just doesn't know how to say it." I wanted to believe that, but the last time I'd seen him, he'd looked right through me like I was a stranger. In late October, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. "Is this Noah Hayes?" "Yes. This is St. Luke's Hospital. Your father's been admitted, car accident. He's stable, but you're listed as his emergency contact." I didn't think. I just ran. When I got there, he was lying in a hospital bed, bandaged but awake. A few scratches, a fractured wrist, nothing life-threatening. But seeing him there, vulnerable, human, cracked something open inside me. He looked up when I walked in. His eyes softened, just a little. "You came," he said. "Of course I did," I whispered. He smiled weakly. "Guess I'm not immortal after all." I laughed or maybe cried. Couldn't tell. We didn't talk about the past that night. We just sat there, in the quiet hum of hospital machines, like two people who didn't know where to start. He came home a week later, and one evening I went to see him. The house smelled like dust and coffee and memories. He sat on the couch, arm in a sling, the TV muted. "I wanted to thank you," he said, "for coming that night." I nodded. "You don't have to." He hesitated, then sighed. "I've been angry, not just at you, at myself, for not seeing what was happening, for trusting people I shouldn't have." I swallowed hard. "I know I was wrong to keep it from you," I said. "But I didn't do it to hurt you, Dad. I was scared. I thought if I told you, It would destroy everything. He looked at me, eyes glistening. It did anyway. Silence. Then he said, I wanted to punish you because it was easier than admitting I'd failed as a husband and a father.
I'm sorry.
The words hit me harder than I expected. I nodded slowly. I'm sorry too. We sat there for a long time. Not healed, not fixed, but softer somehow. Before I left, he asked quietly, How's college? I smiled. Hard, but good. He nodded. I'll send something your way. Not a handout, just help. I wanted to say no. Pride wanted me to. But love, bruised and clumsy, made me nod. Thanks, Dad. I'm 20 now. Still at NYU. Still working part-time. Still figuring things out. Mom's in therapy, rebuilding her life. Dad and I talk once a week. Sometimes we grab dinner. It's not easy, there are pauses, old wounds, but we're trying. Sometimes he brings up the future. Maybe med school, he says. Or journalism. You've got the heart for it. And sometimes I see that same pride in his eyes, the one I used to see when I was 10, the pride that says, you're my son. The past still lingers between us, like smoke that never quite clears. But I've learned that forgiveness isn't about erasing pain. It's about learning to live with it without letting it rot you. Last week, I stopped by the house to drop off some mail. Dad was in his office sorting through old folders. He looked up and smiled faintly. You remember this? He held up the college savings folder. The same one from 2 years ago. I nodded. He opened it and slid out a check. For next semester, he said. I figure you've earned it. I stared at it for a long moment. You don't have to. I know, he said. But I want to. I took it, hand trembling. Thank you. He smiled a little sadly. Guess we both figured things out on our own. As I left, I looked back at him. The man who'd broken me, and the man I'd broken in return. And for the first time in years, I didn't see anger. I saw peace. It wasn't the ending I dreamed of, but it was real. And in this messy, imperfect city, where forgiveness felt like something you earned one step at a time, that was enough. If you were in my father's shoes, would you have forgiven me? Do you think I deserve the punishment? Please click the subscribe button.